2. The universal problem of the missing subject. 2.1. Centerlessness at every scale of reality. One of the most consistent and consequential patterns across all scales of reality is the complete absence of a locatable center. This centerlessness is not a feature of any particular domain of inquiry. It is a universal structural characteristic that applies equally to cosmological, biological, mechanical, and computational systems. Its implications for the question of the ultimate subject of human experience are profound and have not been adequately drawn out in the existing literature. At the cosmological scale, modern physics has established beyond reasonable doubt that the universe has no center. The Copernican revolution displaced the Earth from the center of the solar system. Subsequent astronomical investigation displaced the solar system from any privileged position within the Milky Way. Contemporary cosmology has established that the Milky Way itself occupies no central position within the observable universe. The universe expands uniformly in all directions, such that every point appears to be at the center from its own vantage, while no point actually is. Cosmological isotropy, confirmed repeatedly by observations of the cosmic microwave background radiation, demonstrates that the universe is centerless at its largest observable scale. The physical universe, the totality of all apparently material reality, has no headquarters, no privileged point from which everything is governed or experienced. At the biological scale, the same pattern holds with equal force. A living organism appears from the outside to be a unified entity with a clear identity and a coherent behavioral repertoire. Yet examination of its components reveals no part that constitutes the organism as a whole. Maturana and Verla, 1980, demonstrated through their theory of autopoiesis that biological systems are self-organizing networks in which no single component occupies a privileged position of control or experience. The organism is the network, not any node within it. At the cellular level, the human body comprises approximately 37 trillion cells, each operating according to its own biochemical logic, with no master cell directing the whole. The brain itself, long assumed to be the seat of experience and agency, follows the same pattern. Consciousness and feeling arise from dynamic interactions across distributed neural systems, with no single region serving as the ultimate experiencer. No neuron, no neural network, no brain region is the organism. The organism is the dynamic relational whole that all these components constitute together, and that whole has no locatable center. At the mechanical scale, the dissolution of the center is equally complete. A machine examined as a whole appears to have identity, function, and purpose. Disassembled into its components, it vanishes entirely. A car is not its engine, not its chassis, not its wheels, not its fuel system, not any combination of parts short of the whole configured in a specific relational pattern operating within a specific environmental context. Hofstadter, 1979, argued that the identity of any complex system is not located in its parts, but emerges from the pattern of their organization, and that this pattern has no physical location. Remove any critical component, and the system ceases to function as the system it was. Yet no component ever was the system. The identity of the whole is real as a functional and relational reality, but unlocatable as a physical object within the system's own parts. At the social scale, the same centerlessness obtains. A nation, a culture, a language, an institution, none of these can be located in any single component. Durkheim, 1895, established that social facts are irreducible to the individuals who participate in them, existing at a level of organization that transcends any particular member. The group has properties, behaviors, and a kind of collective identity that no individual member possesses or contains. Yet the group has no center, no locatable seat of its collective existence. The pattern is universal. At every scale of reality that human inquiry has examined, from the largest cosmological structures to the smallest biological components, from machines to social collectives, there is no center. There is no privileged point that governs, decides, or experiences on behalf of the whole. The universe is centerless. The organism is centerless. The machine is centerless. The social collective is centerless. 2.2. The Mariological argument. Why parts cannot generate subjects. The universal centerlessness just described is not merely an empirical observation. It reflects a deep metaphysical truth about the relationship between parts and wholes that the philosophical tradition of Mariology has developed with considerable precision, and that has direct logical implications for the question of the subject of experience. The relationship between parts and wholes has occupied philosophy since antiquity. Aristotle, 350 BCE 2016, observed in the Metaphysics that the whole is something over and above its parts, and that it is not the same as the sum of those parts. This foundational observation points toward a persistent and underappreciated truth. Parts do not merely combine to form wholes. They are constituted as parts by their participation in a whole, and they cease to be what they are when that participation is dissolved. A neuron removed from the brain is no longer a brain neuron in any functionally meaningful sense. A heart removed from the body ceases to be a heart and becomes a piece of muscle tissue. The identity of every part is relationally constituted by its position within the whole to which it belongs. This observation has a radical implication for the question of the subject of experience. If parts derive their identity, their function, and their very existence as the kinds of things they are from their participation in a whole, then no part can be the source of anything. Parts do not generate experience. Parts do not make decisions. Parts do not feel. What appears to be the activity of a part, a neuron firing, a heart beating, a word being processed, is always and already the activity of the whole expressing itself through that part. Whitehead, 1929, argued precisely this in his Process Philosophy, proposing that every actual entity is a product of its relations to all other entities, such that nothing exists in isolation and everything that occurs is an event within a relational whole rather than an action of an independent substance. Varzi, 2016, surveyed the range of coherent Mariological frameworks and their different conceptions of parthood, revealing the philosophical complexity of the relationship between parts and wholes. Within the tradition of ontological dependence theory, the properties of parts are understood as determined by their relations within the whole rather than by any intrinsic characteristics they possess independently. Van Inwagen, 1990, raised the composition question, asking under what conditions a collection of parts constitutes a genuine whole, and concluded that only living organisms constitute genuine wholes beyond their parts, pointing toward the significance of the living whole as a category distinct from mere aggregation. The living whole is not merely the sum of its parts, but a unified system whose unity is not reducible to the properties of any component. The Buddhist philosophical tradition arrived at the same conclusion through independent inquiry. Nagarjuna's philosophical analysis of the Buddhist doctrine of dependent origination, pratityasamutpada, establishes that no phenomenon possesses inherent existence independently of its relations to other phenomena. Everything arises in dependence upon conditions, and nothing exists as a self-sufficient, independently real entity. Applied to the question of parts, this means that parts are not independently real things that combine to form wholes. They are dependent arisings whose apparent independence is a conceptual superimposition rather than an ontological fact. The logical conclusion is precise and unavoidable. Independent parts that generate properties, decisions, or experiences from within themselves do not exist anywhere in the structure of reality. What exists are wholes, and wholes within wholes, each level of organization emerging from and constituted by its relations to the levels above and below it. If the subject of experience exists at all, it cannot be a part. It must be the whole. And the question then becomes, what kind of whole generates a subject? This is the question that chapters 2 and 3 of this book address. But before reaching the positive answer, the negative case must be completed by examining the specific failures of neuroscience and philosophy to locate the subject within their respective domains. 2.3. The logical force of universal centerlessness. The significance of the universal centerlessness documented in this section has not been adequately recognized in the existing literature on consciousness and selfhood. It is not merely an interesting empirical observation about the distributed character of complex systems. It is a logical constraint on any adequate theory of the subject of experience. The constraint operates as follows. If the subject of experience were a locatable entity within a system, we would expect to find, somewhere in the range of systems we have examined, at least one system that contains a locatable center of experience. We have examined systems at every scale from the subatomic to the cosmological, from the biological to the mechanical to the computational. In no system at any scale have we found a locatable center of experience. The consistent absence of such a center across all systems at all scales is not a series of independent failures. It is a pattern, and the most parsimonious explanation of a universal pattern is that it reflects a universal structural feature of reality rather than a series of contingent investigative failures. The universal structural feature that explains this pattern is precisely what the mereological argument establishes. The subject of experience is not the kind of thing that can be found among the parts of any system, because the subject is not a part. It is the whole, and the whole, at every scale of reality, is not locatable within its own parts. It exists at a different level of ontological organization than any of the parts that constitute it. This conclusion does not yet tell us what the whole ultimately is. It tells us only that the subject of experience must be sought at the level of the whole rather than among the parts. The identification of that ultimate whole and the demonstration that it is precisely what the author calls infinite consciousness is the task of chapters 2 and 3. But the argument of the present section establishes the logical necessity of that direction of inquiry. The subject is not a part. Therefore, it must be the whole, and the question of which whole is the ultimate subject is the question to which the rest of this book is devoted.